Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cara, and if you're new here, then hi. So in this video I will be talking about my advice if you're going to college or university. Not really advice, but things that I've learned up until now and that I thought would be useful to share, maybe when you're starting out somewhere this year. So maybe I should start off with some info about my own studies. I live in Belgium and I study at the University of Antwerp. I'm currently a third-year student in linguistics and literature in English and Spanish. I'm in my third year, as I mentioned, and I've not figured it all out yet, but I have written down some things that could be useful if you're a first-year student, or maybe if you're already more advanced in your studies, but you know, you could use some advice, tips, I don't know. I'm also well aware of the differences between different countries, different universities. The systems I'm used to may not be familiar to you, but I think that the things I've written down to talk about today are pretty universal. My first advice, if you want to call it advice, is that change doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people, they tend to have this sort of idea that going to college or university is big changes that are immediately put into practice. But my experience is that going to university, yes, it's a big change, things are different, but you're not a different person from one day to the other. So looking back at my first 2 years, and I'm currently halfway my third year, I've changed so much, but it happens very gradually. So definitely don't expect to things be totally different at once, because you can only become a different and more mature person when you allow change to happen slowly. At least that's my experience. But second advice of me is that uni or college or in whatever institution you're involved, is that it's all about balance. For example, in my case, I had a hard time finding my balance between my studies, my new friends, old friends, work, my boyfriends, and I still haven't figured it all out. But now that I'm in my third year, I do think that I've found some kind of a balance. And finding balance is a very difficult thing, at least to me, because when you go to uni or college, you're met with all these new things, new people, new experiences, and it's very overwhelming in a way. So finding a balance between what you already know from high school and the life you had, and balancing it with all these new things coming into your life, it's difficult, but it's one of the most important things going to a college or uni experience. Third, I would say that uni is all about adapting yourself, and by saying that I mean adapting to your different courses. For example, something that may be useful, may work in course A, may not be the best thing in course B. For example, something I really stressed about starting out as a student at uni is whether to make handwritten notes or just bring my laptop and type. There are some courses in which the professor is just constantly rattling off information. In that case, I prefer using my laptop, But for example, with my Spanish courses, there's also a lot of information being constantly put out, but kind of in a different way. So in those courses, I prefer writing my notes. So don't settle on one technique, but allow yourself to adapt to different courses, to different professors, because not every professor has the same way of handling things. Uni is very much about having different approaches to different subjects and different courses. So yeah, that's an advice I definitely think could be useful. Another thing about adapting is possibly skipping classes. I'm not trying to be a bad influence, but I've had courses that were so useless to attend every week. For example, if your professor provides all of his slides online, if you have a syllabus, we call it syllabus, but it's basically like this huge textbook that you buy, or in some courses you need to buy like obligatory handbooks. But if you're offered with all the information and the course itself isn't really bring anything new to the table, I would say make up your mind whether it's beneficial to attend or if your time could be used better in another way. So that's also what I mean by adapting. I know that skipping classes isn't a good advice, but what I'm trying to say is that some courses just call for a different approach, a different method, and if not attending class, but working through all the material on your own is a better way of apprehending the stuff, then that's also a way of adapting yourself in a beneficial way. Advice number 4 is to really try to put your phone away in class. And I know this is difficult. It's so easy to just get caught up in your phone and just not be focused on the class with what is going on. Something that helps me to stay focused is thinking, well, okay, so I managed to get to class, so I'm going to use this time and not let myself be too distracted by using my phone all the time. There's no use in attending class and not really listening, not really paying attention because you're too caught up in your phone or your laptop. 5, and this is something that may contradict my previous point, but in some cases, some courses, professors are just too fast. So something I've done in the past to have all the info I need is to record my classes with my phone, with my audio thing, so that when you're preparing for your exam or just studying at home, it's easy to have all these recordings on your phone, so you can go back and listen to certain things that you may have missed or things that weren't as clear in class. And also when you're recording with your phone, you're more likely to put it aside and not touch it, because every time you take it in your hand or you're swiping, it messes up the audio if you're recording something. So advice number 6 is to definitely try new things, but please don't force yourself in liking them. For example, when I started out in my first year, I was open to almost everything. In Belgium we have something we call studentenverenigingen, and I'm not sure what the proper translation in English would be, but it's basically you have different groups, different communities of students in a university or a college, and usually there's one community, one group for each study. And at the beginning of my studies, I was very into trying new things, trying activities from this community, going to parties, going to events, gain some experience, kind of see what's out there. But please don't force yourself to like all of these things, because I'm glad I tried as many things as possible in my first year, but now that I'm in my third year, I'm kind of, I still like going to a party once in a while. I'll never be a party animal, and that's alright, because in my first year I had this kind of feeling that, oh yeah, I'm at uni, so I need to go party. I mean, not exactly in that way, but I wanted to push myself to go to a party, go to this, go to that, and I'm glad I did. But now that I'm, in this stage of my studies, I can say that I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as I had maybe hoped I would. Does that make sense? On one hand, don't feel bad if you're not loving something that you thought you would really love. It's okay to not be as fond of something as other people are, but on the other hand, it's a good thing that you're just trying all these new things out and just experiencing what you like, what you don't like, and glad that I didn't really force myself to like all these things when in reality they were okay, but I feel like I've seen it by now. Evan is more study related, and it's actually a very small thing, but something that really helps me, especially in the exam periods or the weeks before when you have all these deadlines approaching. And my advice is to write all your deadlines down, and the way. So my camera just cut me off, bitch. But what I was saying is that the way I, keep track of my deadlines is I take these sticky notes, and I take one note for each course that I'm taking, and I just write down all the deadlines that I have during the semester, and I put them at my desk. So when I'm working for school, I have this, clear overview of the deadlines approaching, and I'm just not stressing about whether I've written down everything and whether I'm forgetting any deadline. So definitely keep track of your deadlines by writing them down on, sticky notes or a planner, and put it at your desk or, the place you're sitting at while studying. The 8th advice, I think, 8, is in your first exam period and just your first semester in general, maybe try using a planner, a sort of study guide that you've put together for yourself. And this is something that I tried in my first year. I made this really detailed study planner for my first exam period, because all the students and just people at uni, all these people were always telling me to surely make a planner, and you have to follow it, because otherwise you will not succeed. And this kind of scared me, so I made this really neat, detailed planner, tried to stick to it, utterly failed at it, but I do think that it's useful to try out making a planner if you're taking your first exams, because planning is something very personal. I'm not really the biggest planner myself, especially not when it comes to studying, but I do think that it's useful to make some sort of outline of what you're planning your days to be like. For example, with my last exam period, I also made a planner, but in less details than in my first year. But what I did was I just decided, well, okay, so on Monday I want to focus on these courses. Tuesday I'll be doing this. And honestly, I don't really stick to it, but when you're in your first year, I would say definitely try to make a planner, because your first exam period is always the most challenging or the most scary exam period, at least in my experience. So it is useful to just find out for yourself whether making a planner is useful to you or not. And if you don't like it, if you're not using it, then I would say definitely scrap it in the following semesters. But try it out, because planning is important, but to a certain extent, since it's just very subjective. Then next is number 9, and that is to don't be too hesitant to make contact with new people and infiltrate in groups of friends that seem really put together or seem very tight. For example, in my first year, I had my own people, which was kind of a big group, but there were also all these kind of subgroups. And in my second year, quite some people left. They either stopped studying or they tried something else. And so in my second year, it was kind of difficult because the whole dynamic was different. And there was this group of girls in my year that was also studying English and Spanish, and they seemed really tight, really set apart. And I remember being kind of hesitant to make contact, because I had the impression that I could never infiltrate in such a tight seeming friendship. But then I ended up becoming friends with one of them, and one thing led to another, and now I'm pretty much part of it, which is very nice. But even though it may seem impossible to connect with certain people, I would say give it a try. Dynamics are always changing in like unis and like big groups of people, because people are leaving, people are changing their focus. If you're friends with someone this year, it may be different the next. But it's never too late to make new contacts. So my 10th and final advice: don't buy study books or textbooks too quickly. For a lot of courses, you'll find a pretty long list of books that are necessary or are useful, but I would definitely suggest to wait at least until the first class, because usually professors will tell you what books or what things you definitely need, and there's just no use in buying all these textbooks before, when you're not really sure whether they will be really necessary in taking this course. And also sometimes information found online isn't always up to date. It could be possible that you're looking at some course information that was actually from last year, and not that there's always such a big difference, but it's always possible that some tweaks, some little changes have happened. So these were my 10 college advice tips. I haven't figured it all out myself, but I do think that these are some things that could be useful, and that maybe I definitely wish to have known before starting out at uni. So I hope some of you benefited from this, and I will see you again in my next video. Bye!